Hello, welcome to another episode of Same Blood, where we talk with people. And right here we have an amazing person in the form of Darren Eubank. He is a singer-songwriter, one half of DandChi, local band. Is that what you would call it? I don't know what you call it.
Yeah, you can say band.
All right, some people are like, what's a duet, a trio? I don't know.
Yeah, I think... So DandChi started as a duo.
Right.
On the streets of the Bishop Arts District. And we did one show, and I was like, hey, let's try to get some guys. And it was a full band show. And then I said, let's always do that. Yeah. So it became a band.
I definitely get that. I get that. It's kind of addicting once you actually put a band together.
Yeah, absolutely.
A little harder to logistically wise. It can be trickier, but man,
six grown men with wives and kids trying to get together and practice music.
Yeah.
It's definitely a lot for sure.
But worth it if you can make it happen. Well, thank you for sitting down for this conversation. We're just here to talk. That's kind of the idea. One of the just kind of slogans for this is people, not politics, right?
Yes, which I love.
And honestly, I do too.
I love that. I just want to talk to a person.
Right.
I don't want to talk to the politics of the person.
Right. Just want to have a conversation. And honestly, I think most people want to do that. I think a lot of people really just aren't even sure how at this point. They're mostly just sitting there going, what am I doing? Like, what do I do? How do I talk to the person that I know, right?
Exactly.
Like, we've hung out before, but now I don't know how to talk to you.
It is pretty tough.
Yeah. But one of the things that we do on the show, we like to start things off with, I ask you what your favorite snack is. You said Reese's. So we like to get started with enjoying some snacks, because that's something that I think people have in common. I might not all enjoy the same snack, but I'm a huge fan of Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, and I think a lot of people are. So we're going to eat some food and...
a little ASMR for you.
Yeah, a little ASMR. So please enjoy. Is there a story behind your love for these, or is it just because they're amazing?
I would probably say it probably starts off with the commercials. You remember as a kid, like the Australia commercial, where it's like a Outback, it's like a rugged Outback, and he's like, Reese's, I'll take a bite now. And then he throws it, and it's like a boomerang, and it comes back, and he goes to save the rest for later. And he eats it. You remember that commercial?
Yeah, I do.
I was like,
I hadn't thought about
that guy is so cool. Like,
man. No, I think about their commercials now because they're so effective. You just see like a bite taken out of it, and you get I just immediately, because you've had one, right? If you've never had one, maybe it's not as effective. But I'm like, no, I've had one. I know how good that is. And every time I see it, I'm just thinking to myself, I need 7 of those.
Yeah.
Like just to survive the day, I need 7 of those.
That's literally how I bite Reese's now, is in a boomerang. I don't throw them, but I eat them, and then
you can stick that in here. Awesome.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah. So. That is in keeping with the idea behind same blood, right? People, like, we have so much in common as humans, right? Which is not to say that we don't have differences, but it's to say that if you stack up the things that we have in common, you have such a good foundation to start with.
Yeah.
To have conversations, right?
Absolutely.
And then to like talk about the things that obviously aren't in people that in life experiences. So a couple of the things that I like to get started with, just to kind of paint a little bit of a picture, is some favorites, right? So for you, favorite besides Reese's, favorite food. You're gonna sit down for a meal. What do you want in front of you? What's your go-to?
Man, my mom made a mean lasagna.
Oh man.
And growing up in Red Oak with a lot of siblings, around Teachers Appreciation Week, my mom would literally make lasagnas for every teacher at the schools that her kids went to.
Really?
And so kind of growing up, it was just one of those expected things. Like, if it was Teachers Appreciation Week, it's lasagna for the teachers. And for me, it meant my coaches as well. And literally the local grocery store, Brookshire's, would let her bring up her lasagnas to the big commercial ovens, and she would cook 15 at a time. And so that was just became like if I was ever in prison on death row, it was like, you get your last meal. Like, I want lasagna made by my mom, right?
Man, that sounds so good. I love lasagna.
It's so good, bro.
So good. That's awesome. All right, cool.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I love the story behind it too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just
helps.
kind of intertwined to my life just growing up. There was a lot of good things that surrounded lasagna. So
That's like my mom, every Sunday after church, my mom would make chicken, and then just called it chicken rice, like, because basically rice, but then some of the seasoning from the chicken, and the rice is absolutely amazing. It's like legendary. It's awesome. People would want to come over on Sunday afternoons just to have the chicken rice, right? And the chicken and everything that went with it. But so that's like one of my favorites, and it's attached to so many memories and all of that. All right, favorite movie.
Oh man, this kind of, depending on what movie's coming out, like it really bounces around. But if this movie's on TV, I have to stop and watch it, and it's The Sandlot.
It's a good movie.
Great movie.
You know, I have to say, I haven't seen that movie enough times. I think I've only seen it like once in my life, which is a problem.
That's way too little. You gotta see it a lot.
Well, here's the reason why I think that is for me, because I didn't grow up with it, so I didn't see it when I was a kid. Like I just heard about it, and then eventually I saw it, and it was later, so it didn't have that chance to like attach to like that memory. There are other movies that I saw growing up that it's like, if that's on, I'm probably gonna stop down and watch it. Like that's gonna happen.
There's so many one-liners in that movie, and like the s'mores. Like, what's a s'more? How can I have s'more of something? It's just like so classic. Pickling the beast. Like stealing, like all these things. We're calling your shot. Like, you play ball like a girl. It's like, this is so like. Yeah. It's such a childhood like memory. Yeah. Just these are all things that I've said before. I remember being in high school when kids first tried like tobacco chew and dip, and they're throwing up in the freaking locker room because it was so terrible. I'm just like, dude, reminds me so much of The Sandlot. So.
I think it had a massive effect on pop culture in general, just based on the stories you hear, people's memories attached to it. So. Great film. Yeah. I think for me, the movie that if it's on and I'm always going to stop down and at least check it out for a bit, that's sort of like that, it's probably Remember the Titans. Oh. Just because like if that's there,
such a good movie.
And there's so many moments in it that's like, even though I don't have time to watch the whole film, like you just capture part of it, right?
Yeah.
And you're just like, I don't know, I feel like you can take 10-minute, 3-minute clips of that film and you just watch them over and over again. There's so much in it.
Gary Brutier.
Awesome. Yeah. Absolutely.
Man, such a good movie. And I don't know if you heard, the coach, the real life coach from that, just recently passed away.
Yeah, I did hear that. Crazy. Man, and I also love the fact in the movie they made it look like they were barely winning games. Real life, they were
destroying people.
It was not close. It was not like a last minute play. It was like, no, we ran through people off the field. Absolutely awesome. All right, sports team. I know you listen to Sports Talk Radio because the Ben and Skin Show, which is now Sports Rock. The number two sports rock station in DFW. So I know you listen to them, but sports team.
Well, see, I'm a Dallas homer for sure. I would definitely have to say probably the Cowboys. I think I find more passion in the winning and losing when it comes to the Cowboys games. And maybe that's just because of my love for Tony Romo. I was like, he has to win so people won't make fun of him. But I mean, I love Texas Rangers. I love the Dallas Mavericks. I used to work at the AAC. I did merch and stuff for the Mavs and the Stars. So I was heavily immersed in all that. Got to meet the Cubes and got to meet his mom too. That was funny. Got to meet Vinnie Paul before, So I just love Dallas sports. But I find the most passion I have is probably in the Cowboys.
That makes sense. I think most people, they're the most polarizing in DFW for a lot of people.
Kind of almost in the world.
Yeah. No, I mean, as much as you love or hate Jerry Jones.
Yeah, and I think I'll take that kind of to the grave, when people talk about, oh, I hate the Cowboys or this and that, I'm just like, whether you hate or you like them, you do have to admit that whenever, for instance, when the draft was happening, this is the biggest time in the NFL, in the offseason, and Jerry Jones talks about Dak for one day. The leading headline on SportsCenter is about Jerry Jones. And I'm just like, but the draft just happened.
Dak's not signing. He hasn't signed yet.
Yeah, and so it's just as crazy how polarizing the Cowboys are.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, now that we've covered some of the favorites, right? Now let's dive into some really divisive things. Let's get in a fight. No, I'm just kidding. So I want to ask you.
For?
Yeah, who are you voting for? What's going on, guys? Who do I get mad at? Which camera do I get angry at?
Yeah, right.
How this works?
Yeah. You know what? Where are we at?
Hold on. Let me cue in here. No, I did want to ask you. So you mentioned growing up, lots of brothers and sisters, lots of family. So where'd you grow up? What is kind of your family story?
Yeah, I grew up in Red Oak, Texas, not too far from here. I am the youngest of 8, and my parents had 3 of their own, fostered 35 kids, and then they adopted the last 5, and I'm the youngest of all of them.
Wow.
So a lot of siblings, and then like faux siblings, if you will, but like they're still a part of our family, and then I have like 20 nephews and nieces, and only half of my siblings have kids, so it's going to grow.
Oh.
So I have a really big family. But I grew up playing any sport, anything that had a ball in it, I could get my hands on. I played it as a kid, and then planned on playing it professionally. Went to college for it, and then picked up a guitar.
Right.
And
the rest is history.
Everything changed.
Guitars ruin everything. I think that's the moral of this whole story. If you get a guitar, your dreams just gone.
Yeah.
It's over with. That's the takeaway here.
Yeah.
Growing up, who were some role models for you?
Probably Will Clark.
Okay.
Who played for the Rangers, Texas Rangers, Rafael Palmeiro.
Will Clark took a baseball to the shoulder from Randy Johnson and got this. That's like the biggest story I remember from him is he got pegged by Randy Johnson and had the seams in his
I just
arm.
liked it because he played first base. I played first base. I would probably say Steve Nash,
Right.
Michael Finley, Dirk Nowitzki, that big 3 era, like that was there. I mean, I remember as kids running around. So there's like four of my nephews are pretty much my age, within like 5 or 6 years. In fact, my oldest nephew is a year and a half younger than me. So growing up with them, we just kind of really rallied around that level of the Mavs, like Michael Finley, Sean Bradley,
right.
Steve Nash, Dirk, and we'd buy their jerseys. We'd go to like their Mav. I think it was like a Mavs like day camp almost. I think it was called like Hot Dogs and Hoops, something like that. They used to have it every year. We'd go and to Reunion Arena, and so those are kind of the people I looked up to as a kid. I remember watching like Kenny Rogers. And I would sit in the living room, or I would stand in the living room with my glove, and I would act like I'm pitching, like while he was pitching, And so like it was all sports, figures, growing up, and they're not necessarily like the most polarizing people, but definitely like DFW famous, if you will.
Right.
As a kid, I think when I hit high school, I started looking at Barry Bonds. Was someone that I super loved. When I was a kid, they used to call me Young Mo, or Little Mo, from like Mo Vaughn. He used to play for the Angels. And then when I got older, I started wearing the number 25 and started wrapping my wood bats the same way that Barry Bonds would do. And in fact, I started hitting home runs like Barry Bonds because I was really good at it too. So,
man, I wish I'd ever hit a home run.
It's one of the best feelings, like to this day, because whenever you do hit a home run, people will tell you you don't feel it in your hands, because all the energy that you've moved from, like, here comes my hitting coach like theology, but all the energy that's moved from your body, your hands, your hips, and everything is moving through the bat to the barrel. And so like you don't feel it in your hands because it's all in the barrel.
Right.
And so when you hit it, it's like you've not hit anything.
Right.
You don't feel it, but you hear it. And so it's just like, boom, you just know, and so it's one of the best feelings you can do is hit a home run.
The only thing I can compare it to is hitting a really clean, like 5-iron. Because when you hit a really good iron shot in golf, you don't really feel it much either.
Yeah, I'm terrible at golf.
But that's not as cool as hitting a home run.
I wish
I
was good at golf, but I'm not. And I was literally having this conversation yesterday. I try so hard to get the mechanics down, but as soon as I start the front swing, it just reverts back to baseball.
Always baseball
tactics,
Always. 100%.
And so I'm just like, man, I cannot do this. So I actually so I'm left-handed, But my dad is right-handed. He didn't have left-handed gloves or left-handed clubs to teach me. And so when I was a kid, he taught me how to play golf right-handed. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually miles better at playing golf right-handed than I am left-handed because
makes sense.
I don't swing left-handed. So
yeah. Well, Phil Mickelson's right-handed and he golfs left-handed. So that's out there a little bit.
Different,
it happens, but all right. So I wanted to get into this right now. A lot of people are talking about, for lack of a better word, different things that people had to overcome, some of the differences that exist in our world, some of the things that they've experienced that they think they view as different that maybe people don't understand as much, right?
Yeah.
And to me, I want to understand where people are coming from. I want to understand people's lives, right?
Yeah.
Just as people, because I think it's valuable.
For sure.
So one of the questions we like to try to ask is, what's something that you feel like you've had to overcome, like that pops in your mind, what's a big obstacle you feel like you've had to overcome in your life?
Yeah. Man, that's a great question. I think I guess the most obvious, well, actually I didn't say this when I was talking about my family, but I am the only black child in my family. My entire family is white. And growing up, it was actually, as a kid, it's funny moments when I look back now, as a kid, it was serious moments. But when I look back now, it's like something I just laugh about. But like, there are so many moments where something would happen and an employee or a staff member or someone would like be like, get this kid's mom, mm-hmm. And my mom would be like, I'm here. And he's like, no, I need his mom, and then she would go into mom mode and she'd be like, mm-hmm. I am his mother, right. It's about, and so I actually was joking with my brother about this because he was asking about something and it got us talking about moments like that. And I was like, I need to start a podcast called I Am His Mother. And it's because I just have so many mm-hmm. stories of where that's happened because obviously we don't look the same. My mom used to joke, he was the easiest pregnancy I ever had, yeah, but it's just, that's probably the most constant thing that I've had to deal with. And it's not always bad, but as a kid, kids just ask questions, right?
Right.
And so getting picked up from school, they were like, why does this white woman pick you up from school? And I'm just like, oh, that's my mom. And then my mom said, what do kids say when I pick you up from school? And I was like, oh, they just think you're my grandma. And she's like, well, I'm never asking that question again, So as a kid, there's a lot of questions like that. Getting older, like not knowing, something like that was really common in black culture. I didn't grow up in black culture. Right. So there's a lot of things that I didn't really know that I had to learn from watching BET, had to learn from watching stuff like that. Movies that are geared towards black people. I would have to watch these things and even ask questions. Like, hey, what is this? So as a kid, you were just learning. I mean, playing basketball was a little different too. I mean, on the way to games, you would listen to your MP3 player or whatever, and for me, I'm listening to like Fall Out Boy and all these things, and everyone's in the back, like they're like flowing and rapping, and I'm just like, what is this about? I don't know how to do any of this stuff, So as a kid, you kind of like navigate that a little different, especially how the world looks at that stuff now. But probably just not knowing a lot about black culture. I mean, I know a lot about black history. In fact, that was probably one of the most awkward moments in school each year was Black History Month, because growing up in Red Oak, there wasn't a lot of black people. And so as a kid, I was maybe like one of 5 or 6 in my school, like in elementary school, that was actually black. And so when we learned about Black History Month, there was just a lot of people walking up to me and being like, I'm so sorry. And as a kid, I'm just like, why are you apologizing to me? I had no idea. But so just not having a lot of knowledge, I guess street knowledge, if you would, I had a lot of book smarts when it came to that stuff. But so that's probably the most constant thing that I had to struggle with. And even now, I'm married to someone who is white. And so I get a lot of looks. And it's almost like it's like a disappointing look, like, oh, why, But that's something we still navigate today too. So
right. Well, and that's really interesting to me. Just again, your own life experience, right? Which is why we're having this conversation. It's just that you've had a unique experience in a lot of ways, and so I think that's really interesting, because to me, I can't put myself in that situation. I can't imagine. I can imagine the big family. Right? I've got 9 brothers and sisters, so I get that.
Absolutely.
I understand that side of it. I understand large meals, because those are awesome. And
that's how I cook now
100%.
too. I'm only cooking for one, but it's always like, we got leftovers, y'all.
Oh yeah, 100%. So I get that, but just that is a really, I don't know. It's really interesting to even think about that, because I don't think when people meet you that they can really understand or put themselves in your shoes, right? To try to where you're coming from, And I think that really highlights one of the issues that we face today, is that it doesn't matter. Like, I can't look at you and make an assumption about you, even if it's based on something I just heard that I'm supposed to assume, right?
Yeah.
Like, or something now I'm supposed to do this or act a certain way or think a certain way, that doesn't actually represent like you specifically, because your life experience, that might make no sense for,
Definitely.
And to me, like, that's why it's so important to just have a conversation and be open to people, and like, I want to know, like, where are you coming from? What's going on here? Because
tell me about you, like your life. Like, I want to know that. Yeah, I drive Uber.
Yeah.
And Uber is it's really what it is platonic speed dating in a way.
Yep.
And it's just because so many people get in and out of your car, and you have to make this impression like, hey, I'm safe, I'm going to get you to where you need to be. And for me, that's through conversation. And some people, I can tell they've had bad experiences with Uber, because when I try to converse, it's like, I'm going to shut down and I'm not going to talk to you, or I'm going to act like you're trying to hit on me, which I'm just like, it says in my bio that I'm married, whatever. And so I just try to converse with them. And I was actually telling my wife about this the other day. It's like, it's really funny how many people just assume what political party I am because of the color of my skin, or they assume that I know or that I hate some race because of the color of my skin. And I'm just like, okay, guys, you don't really know me that well to just kind of blur all this stuff out. But it's just kind of like a funny thing to know. I probably do 45, 50 trips a week, and so just to see. And you get to see and meet so many different people. But as humans, I think our disposition in that is like, we see and we think we know,
Right.
And that's just not true, So,
well, honestly, to me, I think that you're going to make assumptions about everybody you meet to an extent.
I think assumptions are going to happen. That's definitely true.
And what I've been trying to do with myself, because it's the only thing you can do, right? Work on yourself, right? And encourage other people, is that I want to make good assumptions about you, and not good as in like, I'm gonna I need to change how I would view you and be like, okay, what would be a good assumption about this person? But instead, I mean that I know where I'm coming from as a human, right? I know that I want to be loved. I want to love other people. I want to be respected. And so I want to respect other people. Like, I want my family to be taken care of. I want to provide for them. Like, I want all of these basic things that I think are fairly universal. And so if I just assume that about you, and let's start from there, and then wherever you come down, wherever you fall on this, like whatever you believe, right? Whatever, if you want to talk about politics, if you want to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about, wherever you fall on it, if I'm starting from the assumption that you got there as somebody who loves your family, somebody who wants to succeed and wants other people to succeed, who wants to be loved and other people to be loved, like wants to be respected.
Yeah.
Like if I start with those assumptions and then let you fill in all the rest of it, I feel like that softens you to people, because it allows it to be like, okay, we might disagree, but not because like I hate you or anything like that.
Exactly.
It's because you got there in the most honest way you can, because you're looking for like what makes sense to you and what matters, and so that's how you got there, you know. And I just wish more people would kind of start from that assumption And then if somebody is going to prove you wrong, let them prove you wrong. But let them prove you wrong in a good assumption.
Yeah. I'll say this. Disagreement, I think, is such an underrated thing these days. In fact, I was just kind of thinking it was disagreements that led, black people out of slavery.
Right.
Imagine if America just agreed that was okay.
Right.
But it was a disagreement, right? And so like that led people out of something that had been terrible for 400 years. And so I'm just like, I'm a huge fan of disagreement. If you don't, especially like talking sports, like, man, if you disagree with me, I'm about to go in. I want to figure out why you disagree with me. Where did you get that from? And I'm open to this. Like, I like getting my mind changed.
Yeah.
If my mind's changed, like I'm learning something brand new, and I like changing people's minds too, just as much as the next person. And so as far as embracing disagreement, like I think we need more of that. And it's weird that our critical thinking has kind of bound down to like, well, if you disagree, you hate, because this is not true. It's just like, no, I don't disagree. I disagree with you because maybe I have different facts than you, or maybe the facts that I have are, better than you. I don't know.
You got information.
Yeah,
and I think that comes
exactly.
in, like, where'd you get your information from? Here's where I got mine. And here's, honestly, I think, and this is actually kind of tees into the next question. I love that, like, disagreement leading to, right? Like, disagreement is so important.
Yeah.
And especially, like, if you can start with the foundation that disagreement doesn't mean hate. I love that, because it's so simple that, disagreement doesn't mean hate. It just means you disagree, and you should talk and figure it out. So I love your entire take on just like having disagreements and how important they are, and that's awesome to me, and I think that's so important and so needed. The question is for you, but also I think for so many people, is what does diversity look like? I mean, you're going to have people who disagree on things that are incredibly sensitive, right? Where they're going to maybe have disagreements on things that they're not really sure what do you even do, how do we even be friends anymore. So what does that look like to you?
Well, I see a lot of that in my band, actually. So my band consists of 5 black guys and 1 white guy. And Austin, our lead guitar player, he's the white guy. He's been in our band for 4 years. And so while he's not necessarily experienced some of the things that we have as a people, he has experienced our reactions to those things. And so really what it looks like for us in the band is just us kind of informing him of this is what's been going on in our lives. I remember, there was a recent moment at one of our rehearsals where he was just asking, like, what are some of the things you guys have gone through? And it was like a 45-minute, like, detour of just us recalling these stories of, moments that have gone on in our lives. And he was just floored, just like, oh my gosh, I can't even, like he couldn't even fathom some of the things, right? And so I think what it looks like is just kind of, informing people of, hey, this is a real thing, and it happens. I think talking with my wife, when we talk about COVID-19, COVID-19 is a real thing.
Right.
It's a very real thing. And I don't think that there's some people that don't take it as serious because it's 3, 4, 5, 6 degrees away from them. But I got a friend whose, relative died. And so she takes it very, very seriously. And it's not necessarily like, a lot of the sicknesses are mild. Brisha, my wife, her brother got it a couple weeks ago, and he just kind of sat in the house and watched Netflix for a week, and then he was fine of it. His wife is high risk because she has lupus. She didn't even get it, and so it's just like, there's a lot of people that can say that and be like, look, it's not even a big deal, but it's just like, you do have to, let me inform you that there are real people that have died from this. And so we should take it, you should take it a little bit more seriously, right? And so just kind of like, just informing people that may not know that maybe what you tell them is the thing that kind of puts them on notice, like, oh, I should be more informed about this, or maybe I should take this more seriously, and that's honestly just from the band. But I think on a broader sense, just kind of saying, like, telling people your story kind of helps people find a common ground. It's something that I like to do when I'm writing music, is when I kind of write from a standpoint that says, if someone's in the crowd going to listen to this song, how can I reach them in a way that's not divisive, but it's poignant, like right to their heart, and so just being able to talk directly to someone and not at someone, not over someone, but like right to their heart, it kind of is one of those things. And it goes back to like when I read the Bible, and Jesus is talking, or the Lord's talking, and he says something twice, right? And that's how you're like, he's like, hey, I want you to listen to this. I want you to listen to this, And so like, how can I get to that moment where someone's like, oh, okay, this is a really serious moment. You know what I'm saying? So something like that. Maybe.
Yeah. No, I think that makes so much sense. I love the connection with COVID, and it's like it's distant unless it's not distant.
Yeah.
Right. And so for me to assume something about you, or to like be like, yeah, it's not a big deal because I haven't experienced it, really does a huge disservice to the people around you. And honestly, it just keeps you inside of a little bubble of your own little world and your own experiences. And it's like, that's the only thing that exists, is the world through my own lens. And I think it's so problematic. And I say this from personal experience, right? As I've tried to be more open and listen and understand people my whole life. I've tried to, but I've realized that I just don't, because I can't put myself in everybody's shoes, but I've basically, you revert to your own lens so often. And just recently I've had my eyes open to a lot of different situations, a lot of different things where I'm like, oh wow, I just had zero idea. Like, no idea, would never have even understood that. And then you told me, and I believe you. And so I think a lot of it is just like, have a conversation with somebody.
Yeah. I think, when I look back at, elections, this happens after every election's done. There's petitions to get rid of the Electoral College. And then there's memes and like things that come out that say, well, if we didn't have the Electoral College, then the little town in Indiana won't get a word. And so they're saying, hey, what about us? Mm-hmm. We want a word. Well, when you look at COVID-19, all these major cities are being affected in major ways. But all the small cities now are saying, like, it's not a big deal because you're 65, 100 miles outside of the city, 200, like you're so far distant. And so the table almost gets turned where the small cities are saying, like, it's not a big deal. This is just, whatever. But the big cities are saying, hey, what about us? There's people that are left and right that are, passing out, falling out from this thing. And so it's kind of a weird, like, depending on what the situation is, if you're in a big city or a small city, like, it's almost like a, just kind of being mindful of, like, it might not be affecting me right now, but I know it's affecting like millions. I'm pretty sure it's in the millions now, right? Millions of people. So it is a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, that's the whole idea for this, the Same Blood, the conversations, is that it's people and your life experience, and honestly helping me educate my own experience and taking what I've experienced and then looking through what you've experienced and trying to add that to it, so it helps me with how I view the world, and just going forward. And hopefully, if you're watching this, it helps you kind of adjust and change how you look at the world, just to see that other people are walking right next to you but not experiencing what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
And you can't assume that they are. I think it's just not a really great place. But I wanted to make sure, you have a podcast you're working on. Yeah. And I heard a tiny bit about it, and I wanted you to be able to give a little shout out for what you're doing with that.
Yeah, so I've got a podcast that I'm building right now. Maybe one episode's out if you're listening to this. But it's called Tour Season. In a nutshell, myself, I've traveled over 100,000 miles the past couple of years, traveling and playing shows left and right. And people only see, the finished product, which in the music world is like me on stage performing. But they don't really know how I got there. And so we talk about like crazy near death like experiences that happened on the road where we almost died, or just different moments on the road where I thought that we were going to get robbed, or just different things like that. So small stories in between, like the traveling to shows. And then we'll also bring on some special guests, in which we'll kind of talk with them and kind of take a tour, if you will, through their life to figure out how they got to where they are, where they're headed, stuff like that. So
awesome. All right. Well, you check out tour season. Check out Darren Eubank, the band, DandChi locally. Again, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation.
I had a blast, man. Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll catch you guys on the next one.